and welcome to Literary Prospects, where we talk to authors and literary professionals about books, publishing, and the writing life. I'm Kelley Vick. I'm the host of the program, and in just a moment, it will be my pleasure to introduce today's guest. But first, a reminder that if you like what you hear, please do take a moment to subscribe. It helps us out, and you can make sure you never miss an episode. Also, we've opened a Literary Prospects shop, so if you're looking for bookish shirts, totes, and gifts, please check that out at literaryprospects.etsy.com. And to grab books featured on the podcast and check out more curated book lists, you can visit the Literary Prospects bookstore on bookshop.org. And last, but certainly not least, if you're interested in extra content on querying and publishing that's only for our members, please consider joining the Literary Prospects Patreon at patreon.com/literary prospects. We'll leave all those links below in the show notes. And now, let's introduce today's guest. Daphne Fama was born in the American South, embedded in its tight-knit Filipino community. Her debut novel, House of Monstrous Women, is out now. When she's not writing stories about monsters and the women who love them, Daphne's writing about video games. When she's not writing, she's spending every minute adoring her partner and pup. Daphne Fama, thank you so much for joining today to discuss your horrifying new novel, House of Monstrous Women. In a starred review, Publishers Weekly says, in lush prose, Fama paints Renoko House as labyrinth and sinister and masterfully incorporates the backdrop of political upheaval and brewing revolution in Manila to add to the tension. The result is a wonderfully fresh take on Gothic horror that should win the author a legion of fans. In another starred review, Booklist says, themes of political oppression, intergenerational trauma, and feminine power reflect in both the real world and supernatural horrors Josephine must survive. This is a sharp, scary read. Author Kylie Lee Baker says, both grisly and tender, House of Monstrous Women invites readers to play an exhilarating, deadly game. Seamlessly blending history and horror, this spectacular story will hold you captive until dawn. And one more, author Rachel Harrison says, mesmerizing, beautifully written, richly atmospheric, and compulsively readable. The horrors in these pages are confronted with ferocious hope. Suspenseful and heartfelt, House of Monstrous Women is a stunning Gothic and an exceptional debut. So, with that, what can you tell us about House of Monstrous Women? How do you describe it?
Well, one, thank you for having me and also for all those wonderful words. But I would describe House of Monstrous Women as Ready or Not, the movie meets Mexican Gothic against the political backdrop of the People Power Revolution in 1986.
What was the spark that started this story for you?
Yeah, you can tell looking at me, I always loved a good haunted house book. But also, there's so many different influences. My mother obviously raised me with stories about the creepy creatures in the forests of the Philippines. She knew a family that were accused of being a swan, which are kind of like vampiric baby-eating vampires in the Philippines. Yeah. And then, of course, I have a political science degree in international relations with a focus on the Philippines. And my mother grew up during the People Power Revolution as well. So I had all of these influences swirling around, and it just seems natural that eventually this book is what comes out.
So, the novel is set in the Philippines in 1986. So, what drew you to writing about this particular time in the
Yeah,
Philippines?
that's a great question. So I was in the Philippines interning at the Security Exchange Commission when Duterte was becoming president. And at the time, I really compared, not to get political here, but I'm about to, Duterte a lot to Trump. And it was odd to see this huge wave of people that were kind of pushing in and so supportive of a politician who had so many of the same Bones as Marcos, the person that they had just pushed out of office 20 years ago. And then Duterte was also pushing up Ferdinand Marcos's son. And so all around me, I saw people, my family, my friends, who were starting to whitewash this history that was in living memory and say, like, oh, look at all the things he did. He built this infrastructure, he made hospitals, while ignoring the fact that people were killed, that people were starved to death, that he truly harmed the country in so many ways. And then that really, I was angry, honestly, and I was disappointed. And I really started to dig into it at that point. And I spoke a lot to my mother and other family members and dug into the history. And I wanted to put that history back out there so we can truly remember how far we've come and that we shouldn't go back.
Mhm. You grew up in a Filipino community in the American South.
Yeah.
How do you think that that particular upbringing influences your writing and your work on this book in particular?
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in a really rural area. My mom was frequently followed by the cops, unfortunately, which it was just
Oh.
very racist, honestly.
Mm.
Like I brought like lumpia, which is just egg rolls, to my school, and like I got made fun of mercilessly. So I started trying to be like blending into the white community, even though I couldn't. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm very pale, honestly. Like I'm as close as it comes. And and my mom got it so much worse. Like even now, she really struggled. And it made me really appreciate how much she did in her life. I'm not going to cry on camera. She did so much for me to put me in what she says is a better situation. And like, I know like her relationship with my dad wasn't the greatest, but she did this to give me a better future. And her mom also did the same. And so I only have the privilege to write this book because of their sacrifices. And so when I wrote this book, I really wanted to honor that tradition, but also the pressure of wanting to make good by that family.
In the book, Josephine, our protagonist, goes to visit the home of her childhood friend, who is rumored to be from a family of a swang, shape-shifting witches, right? Or you described it earlier, sort of vampiric. Um, and Aswang are entrenched, as you said, in Filipino folklore. Can
Mhm.
you talk a little bit more about this particular type of entity? I'm looking for the right sort
Yeah,
of word to
that's fair.
use and what they are and sort of what they represent in Filipino folklore.
Yeah, so depending on your region, your like idea of a song really changes. So like I spoke to someone in Manila and their idea of it is more like a manananggal, which is like a beautiful woman who at night splits from her body and leaves her legs behind. So she has her entrails kind of like beneath her chest and she
Oh,
flies like a bat and she uses her long kind of proboscis tongue to go through like roof and suck out babies from stomachs. Does that make sense? From the womb.
yeah.
Um, so that's more like I think the traditional view of what an aswang is. But in Karigara, my mom's hometown, an aswang is more like a family unit, and there's one person in the family who's an aswang, and they pass around like this kind of egg-like stone, which is like a cursed stone, from one person to the next. So the entire family is ends up being like kind of ostracized because they can't tell who it is. But the person who has a stone shape shifts and then turns into a being that will either like eat the dead, like freshly dead people in the graves if they're not like properly buried, or babies, or just whomever. But they also tend to be witches, so they can use curses and spells and things of that nature. And also, and a swan can't die until they've passed on that stone, which is another big component of but it's like hell. Like as they're dying, they're like tortured. So they have to pass it on to their family. Thus like damning their next family member. So it's a very fascinating thing.
It is fascinating. That's incredible to me. Um, you mentioned that your mother told you a lot of these stories as a child. I wanted to ask you about some of the stories that she told you, but you just mentioned earlier that she knew a family who was accused of being
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, so actually one of the inspirations for Haraya and Sadapa, two sisters in the novel, are based on women that I know as well. Like they're essentially just my mom's friends. One of them moved to Florida, so like we had Thanksgiving like 2 or 3 years ago, and I lived in Florida. They're just a really nice family, but they've changed their name. But when they were younger, yeah, sorry, I'll just start over. When they were
Wow.
younger, their family was accused of being a swan, and so they would get made fun of a lot. But their parents obviously endured a lot more
Mhm.
ostracization. My mom was friends with them because she was just like a delinquent, essentially. And but like eventually the family ended up receiving, it's so hard because in the Philippines, like your community and your friends and your reputation is so important. And so to be treated so badly by everyone in this very small town, eventually they just left and tried to like, they changed their name and took on a new identity. My mom was able to keep in contact with them. And like, I don't think they're really strong. I don't think they ate anyone. But the impact of that social prejudice was so difficult for them that like they won't talk about it anymore. And I didn't even want to talk about it with them because I think it's just a painful memory,
Yeah.
honestly.
What were some of the other stories that your mom shared with you that stuck with you?
Gosh, there was this really interesting one. She had a friend, it's not a very close friend, who would hear an encanto, which is like a being from the next world, like kind of like a nymph, but not quite.
Hmm.
Um, and it's like almost like a fairy, like in Ireland, where like they lure you in and they like trap you. You know what I'm
Hmm.
talking about?
Hmm.
So these encantos will call you, and they'll slowly drive you crazy if you resist their call. And they try to keep it from, so they'll call you into the forest and you'll be lost in the forest and you'll never be seen again. And so this woman had to be restrained during, I think, 6 p.m. when the church bells rung because she would try to go into the forest. And one time she literally threw herself out of a window trying to get to the trees. So they had to perform like a sort of exorcism where you have to use like holy water
Hmm.
to cure it. So I thought that was interesting.
This is all so fascinating, Daphne.
Yeah, I also really enjoy it.
I want to just keep sitting here and saying, tell me another one. Tell me another one.
Yeah, they're really great. Gosh, I don't think I have any. Well, I also met a sorcerer who like kills people in my last trip to the Philippines. So there's also that. Yeah.
Wait, a sorcerer who kills people?
Yeah. So
Well, and
like
this
there's a lot.
was this on your research
Yeah,
trip?
it
Because I
was
want
for
to, okay,
research. Yeah.
okay.
Okay. Should I tell
Tell
you?
me.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. So it's actually really hard to find people who practice traditional like witchcraft or kubam. So I had my aunt Tita Renilda look for someone, and it took her 3 months. And once she found them, we went on a boat and took this massive journey to a really remote island. And he lived on the coast there. And essentially, he says that he traded the lives of his wife and children to an Encanto to get power. And this Encanto took on the form of an albino soldier, an American soldier, to make this deal with him. And so now he kills people essentially by taking the photo of the person he's been told to kill. He does commissions essentially. He puts them in like an iron pot, and he goes into a graveyard and he boils that pot every Friday for several weeks. And then eventually that person died. And then he would like, it was almost like a resume, almost like he's like, I've killed this person and I've killed this person to like prove that he could do it. So I thought that was also interesting.
Interesting and terrifying.
Yeah, my mom was like, "Don't eat anything there. Don't tell him your name." Because
Yeah.
like poisoning is supposed to be a really common thing with these people. Like there's an entire village known for poisoners that my mom won't let me go to, which I think is silly. Like I don't think that happens anymore.
How did you go about setting up these research trips to be able to find this is some in-depth
Yeah,
research.
it was so cool. I really no, honestly, I mean, Karigar is a small town. It's gotten bigger, but my teacher Renilda is really fantastic at meeting people. So she's
Mhm.
just out there. She knows people. But even then, she had to meet someone to introduce her. So it's just like a string of connections. And then I had to bring my teacher Renilda to introduce me to him because I needed a contact before I could even like go to his house. So
Mhm.
it's honestly just social connections all the way down.
And you spoke to a lot of village elders as well, is that right?
Yeah. So one of them was Lana, sorry, the Binghui family, and they do Lana, which is like an oil. And
Hmm.
like they're essentially healers and they're very cool. They can do like healing massages and they pick the herbs during like Holy Week, like by the ocean, because there's a lot of nowadays, there's a lot of Christianity built into healing magic, which
Hmm.
I think, and they'll
Hmm.
like, oh, this bottle, and if it turns hot, and a swang is nearby, like things like that. So,
This is so interesting. Um, what draws you to writing horror?
oh God, I think some people are just born liking it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think I'm somewhat of an anxious person. And I think that like when I was a kid, I was really afraid of the dark. And
Mhm.
so I would make up these stories in my head about what might be out there. And then once you kind of have a face for what it might be, whatever is in my imagination, I know is so much worse than what is ever out there. And I know I can overcome it. And then as I got older, all the things that I thought that happened that I found were hard or that I grieved over or that had traumatized me, I was able to create a character that could overcome it. And in doing so, I became stronger. And I know I'm not the only one who has these fears.
Mhm.
Um, so it's good to be able to share that with others and show them that it is possible to get over it and come out the other side and be whole. Like what was scarred you is not who you are. It's something in the past.
What is your process like what was it like when you were working on this book? We talked about all that research.
Yeah,
So you sort of got the idea, this seed of an idea, and
yeah,
then what happens? How did it all
yeah.
become the novel?
That's such a good question. I essentially already knew that I wanted to write about the Swan family, the Ronico family. And I knew that I wanted to bring the political component in. But then I just drew from other interests I really enjoyed. Have you ever heard of the Winchester House?
Yes.
Yes, I really love the Winchester House, which is like obviously, I'll just in case someone doesn't know, it's like this labyrinthian house in California, and the woman there believes she was being haunted by ghosts who would catch her if she ever stopped building, which I think very spooky, very cool.
Hmm.
And then I combo the that house with Intramuros, which is a fortress in the Philippines. It's massive and sprawling, and a lot of people died there. So just like all those spirits, all that anguish, and just kind of pushed it together. Um, and then there's also a game called Tagu Tagu where it's like hide and seek in the dark. And I used to play that as a kid in Karigar because there wasn't electricity when I first went there. And it's terrifying, but it's really, really fun. But it's also really creepy. So it just kind of all of these memories and interests kind of coalescing. And it just felt very natural, honestly.
Tagu Tagu is a game that they play in the novel as
Mhm.
well. But so it's hide and seek in the dark. Are there other components to it?
I mean, it depends. I mean, based on the fact that we were all just kids, I just based it on my own.
Mhm.
I definitely edited it, changed it a bit for to fit the book, but it's most like you have to just be within range. You can't go into the forest because there's snakes and stuff like
Yeah.
cobras. Don't care. Um, but like just it's just hide and seek. Honestly, it's just creepy because it's so dark.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you come to writing? How did you become a writer? Have you always written?
No, actually, so I when my mom really wanted me to be a lawyer, and so I went to law school and I passed the bar. And there was like a moment in time where I wasn't doing anything at all. And I guess I should say now that I didn't want to be a lawyer. I did it to make my mother proud. And so I
Mm.
kind of felt very lost. Um, and so I was I had realized I hadn't done much for me. I was just doing things to make other people happy. And so I did what I wanted to do, which is write a book. And here we are. I'm really glad that I was able to make it work.
Me too. How did you figure that out though? Did you just sort of like sit down and start writing
Yeah.
one
First,
day? Have you always kind of had a little folder in the, or, how did?
Oh, no, I
How
never
did you think
written
that
a,
writing was the thing?
I just kind of liked it, I guess. I mean, like when I was a teenager, I wrote odd little like snippets of stuff, but nothing that would be called a story. And the first draft I wrote was truly trash. It was garbage. And so I like obviously looked from advice from people like you and like podcasts and all that type of thing. And I just kind of self-taught until it became something not terrible.
That's incredible. What was your path to publication like then?
Oh God. Tough. I mean, like writing your first query letter is like such a different, is an art form, isn't it? Like you
Hmm.
really have to know how to sell yourself. So there's like I'd use a lot of like forums and beta readers and Reddit, and I'd put up my query letters and they get torn apart. I try again and again and again until it was like decent. And then I did a pitch event. My agent really liked my pitch, and I sent her that, and then it just went really well.
What was the pitch event?
It was the horror one in October.
Hmm.
Oh, it's actually such a great event. It's called Pit Dark, and it's for horror novels specifically or darker novels.
Hmm.
Um, and I just it worked out. It really worked out.
And so you met your agent there,
Yes,
you did the pitch
yeah.
event, and then can you kind of take us through what happened after that? Like what it was like?
It was, oh God, honestly, I went through so many revisions. Like I did not have a script at all, but I guess she liked the bones of it. So I revised that novel with her maybe twice, and it felt like in such a short span. But then when she felt like it was ready, she then subbed it out. And we had like few offers, but the one that really mattered was Candace at Berkeley
Hmm.
imprint, which and she's honestly like so wonderful. But I was like Dorian's, I think, first big sale and obviously my first novel and Candace's first acquisition. So we were all really new to this. And it was just like, oh, we're all in this together. But then I had to revise my novel like a dozen times. So it was a lot, but it was totally worth it because now I'm really proud of it. And I don't think it would have been worth reading when I first queried it.
What are you working on now? Are you working on another one?
I am. It's going to be a second. Well, remember that town I told you about where I met that sorcerer?
Yes.
Okay, it's set there, and it's going to involve kind of like a midsummer Wicker Man situation. So it's more like a Filipino fiesta, um, with something called a Dewata, which is like a god spirit, and it
Mhm.
just gets really messed up really fast. So
How how do you continue your research for these stories? Because it feels like from what I'm hearing, there's such a rich, vast Filipino folklore
yeah,
system.
yeah, no, I feel like most of it, like if you look online for stuff on the Philippines, it feels kind of bad. It feels artificial. But if
Mm,
you like go into these towns and you start talking to people, most people want to tell you their ghost stories. Everyone has a weird story, right? Like they're really, really happy to tell you, but you have to be kind of willing to go out there and put yourself out there. I also go to the Philippines all the time. Like my mom's in Carigar right now and she's sad I'm not there. So it's just kind of it just kind of feels natural, but you do have to get off the beaten path a lot and just keep kind of paying for really long car rides, if that makes sense.
yeah, it feels like you're almost it's like there's two jobs. You're almost sort of doing this like journalistic
Yeah.
folklorist kind of
Yeah. It's actually really important to me because a lot of Filipino culture is kind of died because it's been colonized by so many different countries,
yeah.
like Japan, Spain, America. And now, like anything that's not Catholic, it's kind of been really suppressed. And so a lot of witchcraft now involves some form of Catholicism. And it's like if you really went back to the roots, it wouldn't it's more ancestral worship and more like animism.
Hmm.
And so it's so hard to dig all the way down. And like the people who know that are getting so old that I feel like I'm racing against the clock to get those stories from them and preserve it. And like House of Monstrous Women takes some liberties, but I'm trying my best, honestly, to pour all of this like traditional research into this book so that there's always some sort of memory out there of it.
Yeah. What do you know now that you wish you had known before publishing this book?
Yeah, I think I wish I knew how to kind of like take correction and rejection, maybe like as expected as part of the path. Like there's so many different people who are going to be like, you need to change this or do that. And like you have such a vision when you come in. You think this is the perfect thing. It's not. Um, but another thing is definitely, I think I would have valued more time. My grandmother passed during COVID, and
Mm.
I think I would have spent more time talking to her, not just like to learn stories, but like, there's so much value to be taken from someone's life and how they lived it and their dreams and like what happened to those dreams. Like, did they change? And then to be able to integrate that, I guess. I think that one's actually, I regret that one the most, is that there's so many different people in my family that I wish I'd gotten to know better.
Mhm.
So I could have helped continue their legacy and like some of the characters. Like everyone represents someone in my book, except for Tatana, who's just a terrible person. Um, so I wish I could have built more of that in there.
That's really beautiful.
Dang.
What what's your best advice for aspiring authors?
I guess my real advice beyond don't give up is to honestly kind of put your heart on the table and dissect it and really find out what matters to you, like what's important to you, because whatever is important to you is important to someone else, maybe a lot of other people, and they will see themselves in your pain and in your hopes and all of that. And I think it'll resonate with them deeper if you do
Mhm.
that. And I think that's what makes it special and what makes writing special. Yeah.
We have a traditional last question
Okay.
on the podcast, and it is when House of Monstrous Women is made into a movie or series, what do you think the theme song should be?
Oh my gosh. I hope they make up an entirely new song. And I want it to be like kind of like a traditional Filipino one. Maybe like they have these really cool instruments or like guitars with like only two strings. I would really like that. Or maybe like kind of like there's like some specific Babayan like shaman music that's
Mm,
really cool and you never hear it anymore. And it's really hard to find. I would love for them to modernize that. Like it's not yeah, I think that'd be really, really sick.
that would be really cool.
Yeah.
Daphne
Well,
Fama, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been awesome getting to talk with you.
and it's been wonderful to be here. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us on Literary Prospects. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe and leave us a review. We'll see you next time.